sorry. A little.
You have your asset seized for that.
Have your asset seized for that, too. There you go. Judy Osborne is the author of Spectre of Forfeiture. She defeated the government's attempted forfeiture of her home and now edits the Fear Chronicles. Is what happened to Donald Scott a rare occurrence?
Many of the things that happen to Donald Scott happen every day. There are people that are getting killed because of the war on drugs and because police want to seize their house. There are many instances where the police lie to obtain a search warrant. And there are many times when the raids are made on places where no crime is being committed.
Mm-hmm. So how does civil forfeiture differ from criminal prosecution?
It's so easy to forfeit something civilly. All they have to do is say that we want it and come and get it. And at that point it becomes your burden, you the property owner's burden, to hire an attorney if you can find one who understands the law and to go there and prove that the government doesn't have a right to your property. So it's enormously different. Really all the government has to do is wish for it and it's theirs until you can go try to get it back, which is very difficult.
Wait, are you saying to me that under civil forfeiture the government doesn't have to prove anything?
No.
There's no due process of law?
No, that's correct. That's what I'm saying.
So
they can seize your property based on hearsay, and hearsay is really nothing more than a police officer standing in front of a judge and swearing to something for which he's not accountable. And that's enough to get the papers to seize your house. Then you have to go back to court and try to prove that your house or your property is not tainted by some unlawful conduct.
So how does do the police or the authorities decide whether a case is civil or criminal?
Well, I think nowadays they have to think more seriously about criminal because of some new developments in the law. But up until about a year ago, the courts had ruled that civil forfeiture of your property was not punishment, and therefore the government didn't have to follow the usual rules that they have to follow when they try to punish you for committing a crime.
So if the authorities have the option of saying this is criminal or civil, they can always say it's civil because it's easier for them to take it.
Absolutely easier. And that's what they do, and that's why for the last 10 years the government civil forfeiture program has really been running amok. What you have here is the government, well, the looters are in the wheelhouse, and they're using the government as a way to loot the country. And the result of it is that the police in situations like this really run around like children without adult supervision, taking what they want. In about 90% of the cases there is no recourse. The property's gone, and whatever rights may have been violated along the way are simply ignored. Fortunately, assassinations are rare, but they're certainly not unheard of, and I'm sure we haven't seen the last of them.
So they can, if they want to, they can just come in and say that they can just plant evidence and say...
They can do that too, but they don't have to. They don't need evidence.
They don't need evidence.
They need a cop. We all know how honest cops are. They need a cop who's ready to swear that somebody reliable told him or her that there's pot in your house or that you sold some drugs or committed some crime and that the fruits of that crime are invested into your real estate or in your bank account.
So if some informant says AaronRusso is growing marijuana in his backyard and the cops come and raid my house, they can seize my home, my bank accounts, based on the fact that some informant said that.
That's correct.
An informant who stands to gain 25% of your seized assets.
Whoa! Wait a minute. No! You mean the informant gets a piece of this action?
Yes, either in reduced jail time in some cases, but most often up to 25% of the forfeited assets.
It's right there in the statute.
It's right there in the statute, yes.
So I'm going to call up on everybody in here. Hey! This one. Let's seize their house. I'm getting 25% of that.
And it places the owner in the untenable situation of trying to prove a negative. I challenge anybody here to prove there was no marijuana in your closet on this day 2 years ago. Prove it.
That's the scary part about it, and what's happened. You know, Aaron, we've been talking about the Constitution, but this demonstrates very clearly the Constitution is what the judges say it is. And if the judges say this is constitutional, then it is. And so one of the problems really is that the judges, we have to have some judges who have the courage to talk about what your rights are and to be offended by this.
But the Constitution is very plain English. It's not very difficult to understand.
Well, you would think so, but historically it's always been nothing more than what the judges say it is. And this generation of judges seems to have a low esteem for some of these rights that we hold so dear.
So who's vulnerable to forfeiture? Like
everyone.
Anybody.
You know, there are lots of cases now where third parties are having their assets seized because of something someone else did. Say a landlord-tenant situation, for example. You may own an apartment building and someone living in your apartment may be selling drugs. The police will come to you and say, get that tenant out of there within 2 weeks or we'll take your property. And you go to your lawyer, you find out that the local landlord-tenant law requires you to give your tenant due process. So you start going through the due process that you're required to give under the local landlord-tenant law, and that's not fast enough. They come in and seize your property. There's a couple in Southern California, retired Army, I forget his office. He was an officer, and this was his retirement property, and he lost his entire rental property because he couldn't get the tenant out fast enough for to please the cops.
If you're a landlord, the situation's even more frightening than that because they can search your rental property illegally. Just kick the door down without a warrant. And if they find something growing there, then they can seize the house. And you, the owner, the landlord, don't have the right to object to the illegal search because you weren't living there. I just had a case like that last week, yes? And they are not embarrassed to stand up in court and say, yes, we're going to take his house, and he has no right to complain that we kicked the door down without a warrant because he wasn't living there at the time.
In fact, reporting your suspicions of your tenant's illegal activities to the police is cause enough to have your house forfeited because that puts on the record that you knew that there was something illegal going on.
Right, right. So
you can't show your innocence.
So you're in a catch-22 situation.
Yes.
So how does an ordinary citizen protect themselves?
You try to get the laws changed.
Right now, everybody is vulnerable. You can have your assets forfeited for making an incorrect statement on a loan application. Fish and Wildlife not long ago seized a tractor under EPA laws because it ran over an endangered rat.
Oh,
it didn't help the rat.
I heard about that. The Vietnamese farmer was tilling his land with his tractor. He ran over a kangaroo rat, and the government came and took his tractor. They tried to put him in jail for 2 years for running over a kangaroo rat. This is unbelievable. Do you know why I'm so mad? Do you understand what's going on here, guys? Yeah. I mean, this is sickening. This is and it's our country.
If you are a member of a corporation and one individual in that corporation is indicted for instance, a money laundering operation, the government has a theory of tainted money, where his tainted money contaminates all your good money like a drop of ink in a glass of water. And so, therefore, the whole corporation's assets can be forfeited based upon the alleged illegal activity of one member.
What is this about legal fiction, that property has no rights so they can take it? How does that work? Can somebody tell me?
This is a very old concept that goes back to biblical times, basically. If an object, it's called deodond, if an object is used to kill a man, then, like a sword is used to kill a man, then they would say, well, that sword was guilty and we're going to take it away from the owner and destroy it. And the owner's rights in it disappear. And they're using that fiction. It's a lie. A fiction is a lie.
But as an example, I heard about a man who lost his airplane because he said the airplane had no rights. It doesn't matter that the man owned the airplane. He said the airplane has no civil rights, so we can just take it. Or we can take his car, or we can take the money, because property has no rights. Ignoring the fact that people who own the property have the rights of ownership. Right. That's the legal fiction, am I correct?
Right.
Explain to me about the 30 days, how that works. That you have 30 days to argue against the seizure, and if you don't do it within 30 days, then you can't get it back?
There's a very important part about that I think that you're overlooking. When they take your property, they could hold it for a long, long time and then send a notice out when you happen to be on vacation or whatever. You've got 20 days not only to file a claim, but to pay a cost bond of 10% of the value of the property in order to even fight to get it back. So in order to get a hearing, you've got to pay for it in advance.
But if they just took everything you own, how can you pay for anything?
Well, you're indigent, and of course you can't hire a lawyer, but because it's a civil case, you are not appointed a counsel.
So you have no money left to hire a lawyer. Correct. They don't give you a court-appointed lawyer, so you can't even fight back in the time allotted.
And the law is so complicated that the majority, I would say, of lawyers don't even know how to fight civil forfeiture.
This is unbelievable.
So people can't fight it themselves.
And which federal agencies have the power to do this?
Most of them. And that's the reason that most forfeitures, people abandon or give up their property or lose their property without ever going to court, without ever getting a day in court. They just lose it.
And though the precedents were set by drug laws, there are over 200 federal forfeiture statutes, and many of them don't even contain the exemption for innocent owners that the drug laws contain.
Where does the money go when they take it all?
The police get to keep it.
Whoa! Whoa! Wait a minute.
Not only
some guy calls up and says, hey, Russo over there is doing something wrong. He's sleeping with his wife or something. Okay? Sex is not allowed here anymore. Okay? And then they come and raid your house. They take all your assets, right? And then they get to keep them. Now, a few days ago, something shocking came across my desk. A new bill, H.R. 1617, the Career Planning Act. Whew. And it's already been passed by both the House and the Senate. It's in committee now, waiting to go to President Clinton for his signature. Carolyn Steinke knows a lot about it. She's the executive director of Parents Involved in Education, and the facts she'll give you will prove that George Orwell's 1984 is only 12 years late. Carolyn, please be the first one to vent.
Children in this nation, as a matter of fact, in our wonderful United States, are scoring lower than third world nations when it comes to getting an academic education.
But we know that problem. Tell us about H.R. 1617.
H.R. 1617 came to light when we realized that there was a plan. The reason why they are dumbing down our children is the Clintons' plan for human resource development. It is a plan in which the government has decided to join in a partnership with parents in the raising of their children.
Parents and the government are going to be a partnership?
Yes, 50% arrangement until a child, of course, has been designated at risk. Now, they call the plan cradle to grave. Cradle to grave, meaning that from the I call it sperm to worm. When the federal government finds out a child is conceived, that is the moment for assessing the parent. And from that time on, every child will be assessed, and they will be qualified, and they will be scrutinized. And if for any reason, according to the plan, these children are not meeting the criteria that the federal government has set for their well-being, which could be anything, we have that also, the at-risk designations, could be anybody's child. The child of an obese parent, the child that has too few toys or too many toys, a child that was a low birth weight, 6 pounds. Do you know what that brings? That brings with it the federal government looking into your home unannounced 8 to 10 visits a year to monitor.
What does that mean? They can just come knock on your door and walk in the house?
Absolutely. If your child has been designated at risk.
And who designates them at risk?
If they fall into the criteria, whoever is the case manager, the social worker, the person...
No!
Absolutely.
No!
Now, that's what we've been finding out. But then we take it a step further and we find out why. Why? Because this whole society is in the process of being recultured. And they say the reason for the Careers Act is that we need to change our labor force because it's so dumbed down, that we have to be able to be competitive in the new world. In the global market, we need global workers. Well, I'm telling you right now, Aaron, with the way this country is hemorrhaging and our manufacturing is going to other countries, the only way this human resource development, human beings who go to get a job are going to be competitive in a third world market is if they're going to work for 1/42nd of the normal wage. Now, the governing board at the federal level sets up a national plan for workforce development, a national employment agency, where all frontline jobs, public and private, must be reported. And all vacancies and